How's it going, everybody? Gaurav Bhatt here. You're listening to the Express Sports Podcast, and it's game time. What happens when three exceptional cricket writers, namely Lawrence Booth, Ali Martin, and our own Sriram Veera, log into a Zoom call and we press the record button? An absolutely absorbing conversation covering how India's triumph in Australia was viewed in England, whether England versus India is on par with Ashes back home, and also where Lawrence first met his wife. Let's get straight into it. Here's Sriram's conversation with Lawrence Booth and Ali Martin.
Hi, I'm Sriram Veera, and I have hijacked the podcast from the usual hosts, Gaurav Bhatt and Mihir Vasavda. This is a look ahead at a special series, England cricket series in India. And I have with me two wonderful guests. First is Lawrence Booth, the Wisden Almanac editor and Daily Mail cricket writer. And we have Ali Martin as well, Guardian and Observer's cricket writer. Welcome, guys. Hi, Lawrence.
Hi, Sriram.
Hi, Ali.
Hello, Sriram. Good to hear you, mate.
So let me plunge straight away. I've been reading some pieces in the England media. So let's start off with how you guys, Lawrence, you looked at India's achievement in Australia and how was it reflected back home in media, and if you can talk about the general populace as well.
Well, I think the immediate question was this the greatest Test series win or comeback of all time? 36 all out in Adelaide. Virat Kohli goes home on paternity leave. Everyone gets injured. There's allegations of racial abuse aimed at Siraj from the spectators. Silly sledging from Tim Payne. I mean, everything that could have gone wrong for India did go wrong, and yet they came back and beat an Australian team that this time had Smith and Warner. They didn't 2 years ago. They had one of their best ever attacks. That was really the debate. I was certainly addressing that question in the Mail the day after. I mean, there's always glee in England. You have to understand when Australia lose. Even sort of leaving that to one side, objectively, this was up there with the great Test series. We were comparing it with the 2005 Ashes. I had to come up with 5 great Test series in the Mail. I think I came up with the 1960-61 Australia-West Indies series, and then India's win against Australia when they followed on in Kolkata. So yeah, one of the greats and a great result for world cricket, really.
Yeah. And Ali, did you at any point think that India can do it?
To be honest, I think we're being English. We're so scarred from England tours going wrong down under that at various points of the India series, I couldn't see it, to be honest. The 36 all out made me think, well, India are toast here, obviously with Virat going home. And then, after that, at that point, when India do get their win, you think, well, they've got their win. That's a hell of an achievement in itself, but it's probably going to dissipate away with all the injuries that kept coming in the camp as well, which again was a very English thing to happen. We are the Ashes campaigns that we have in Australia tend to end up with the infirmary full of England players broken and battered, but they just kept coming. India just kept coming. It was incredible. And actually, one of the things I've enjoyed, and one of the things that I think Test cricket, it just shows how much Test cricket resonates, is that we're still talking about it now. We're going to be talking about it for weeks. It's one of those series that will live so much longer in the memory than probably some of the more disposable white ball cricket that we see. I know that sounds a bit sniffy and a bit elitist, but it's just a fact. People are still talking about it now.
Some interesting comments came in from Mike Atherton and co, looking ahead to the England tour. And he said probably it's time, or at least on par with England versus India, that is, on par with Ashes, maybe even better in terms of if England achieve it in India. So, Lawrence, has it reached that level? Does it matter for the English public in England contest in India?
Well, it's an interesting one. To the general English public, I don't think it does matter as much as the Ashes, because what sometimes people coming into England don't quite realise is that cricket doesn't capture the national consciousness in the way that football does. We're a football nation and cricket is second. It's not like India or Australia where cricket is by far and away the national sport. So to the general public, it may go relatively unnoticed compared to winning against Australia. But to the cricket community, I think they would accept it would probably be slightly above an Ashes win. I mean, people still talk about England's win in India in 2012-13, which was the last time India lost a home Test series. And even the players involved think that was probably a greater achievement than the win in Australia 2 winters earlier, even though England won 3 Tests by an innings in that series under Andrew Strauss. So I think winning in India now has become the hardest gig in world cricket for any touring team. As I just mentioned, they've not lost at home for 8 years. And I think, I was just checking their record actually, I think they've only lost one test at home in that time. Not to forget series, they've lost one test, and that's when Steve O'Keefe, if you remember him, took 12 wickets at Pune.
Oh, yeah.
A complete freak of a game. So look, winning in India would be Joe Root's greatest achievement yet. If he then went on to win in Australia, well, we can have that debate then. But if he was offered victory in either of them, he'd snap your hand off. I think winning in India would be the thing he'd look back on at the end of his career and say that was my high point.
Okay, Ali, so in that regard, even if it doesn't catch the imagination as much of the public, in the cricketing fraternity, and beating India in India is probably difficult than beating Australia, at least in this current scenario.
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, you've only got to go back to the great Australian team itself under Steve Waugh. They talked about India as the final frontier. And it really is a kind of, once in a sort of quarter of a century achievement for a touring side to actually go there and do it. So I love the fact we're even talking about the idea that England could win in it. I mean, when we look back at the 2012 series and that England team that went out there, they had so many more bases covered. It really comes down to the spinners. It was Graham Swan and Monty Panesar were absolutely at the peak of their powers then, and there was an England batting lineup that could churn out runs. Now, I'm not saying that they're total no-hopers that England are sending out this time, but certainly in the spin department, you're looking at just the experience isn't there. And I just think it's such a tall order for those two spinners in particular, Jack Leach and Don Best, that, it's nice to be talking about the idea of England winning in India. But I actually personally think that just to win a test out there would be a real achievement for this side, given the way they're set up, and also given, as Lawrence said, I mean, it's one home defeat for India in their last 35 home tests. I mean, yeah, to win one would be one hell of an achievement in itself.
Well, if anything that India's tour of Australia has taught us, I think the people we don't reckon will do it will probably do it. But I'd just like to talk on one bit, Lawrence. This England team, this current squad rather, you've been in and out. I understand you're resting people, rotating people. Some of the Indians, we don't understand what's happening. It's like, why isn't Butler, your best middle order attacking batsman, is not available? Why is Bairstow going just available only from the third test? What exactly is happening? It's not that you're looking down or looking down the India series. It's a larger picture playing, right?
Absolutely. They're certainly not looking down their noses at this India series, far from it. I think they're looking at it with some trepidation. It's the reality of the world at the moment. England have got 17 test matches in 2021. They played 2 of them already. That was a tour in Sri Lanka, which was held over from last year. So coronavirus had an effect. It meant that series have been sort of concertinaed into the early part of this year that would have been played before. So they do need to rest people. There's an IPL coming up, which is now a fact of life, whether people like it or not, that players make their money there and they need to be ready for that. There's a 2020 World Cup coming up later in the year, and then there's an Ashes. So England do need to look after their best players, and it's going to throw up scenarios that were precisely the one we're discussing now, where Jos Buttler, who's beginning to look like a classy red ball player, he's found his tempo beautifully in the second test in Gaul and kept really well as well, by the way, probably his best performance with the gloves for England. It does seem crazy that he's only going to play one test in India, and India will be delighted about that. Johnny Bairstow, who finally gets back into the test team, and then he's told he's going to be rested, and he's had to take that on the chin. He's a pretty good player of spin. I would say that of the team that was in Sri Lanka, probably only Root and Butler play spin better than him in that side. So it's going to throw up these issues as we go along. But on the flip side, England will have Stokes and Archer back. Rory Burns, who might strike less fear into the hearts of Indian fans, but Stokes and Archer coming back, who are rested in Sri Lanka, so they'll be fit and raring to go. Chris Wokes didn't play at all in Sri Lanka, so in theory he'll be fit. So it's not all doom and gloom. And it is just the reality of the modern world. They're going to collapse in the heat. There are bubbles as well. Don't forget, they're mentally draining for these guys. There's a duty of care now among national boards, and I think that is the right way to go, even if it means that the public are, to a degree, slightly cheated in terms of the players they get to see.
Ali, could you just talk about the same topic a little bit more? What do you think? What are your thoughts on it? You wish these guys were playing? And also, the decision is taken beyond Bairstow, right? As in, it's been told he needs to be rested.
Yeah, I think given, England are essentially taking a pragmatic approach to what is a pretty freakish winter in some regards. If you think that obviously the English winter runs end of September through to April, this particular one, because of coronavirus, is bookended by 2 IPLs, one at the start, one at the end. There was a Sri Lanka tour that wasn't meant to have happened this winter. It was meant to have taken place last March, but got obviously pushed back by the pandemic as well. So they are dealing with a pretty freakish schedule here. And ultimately, we've reached the point in international cricket or in cricket generally where the IPL doesn't shift for anything. That is where players go and double their annual salary in the space of 6 or 7 weeks, certainly for the big earners. And we're certainly talking about the main players here, Stokes, Buttler, Archer, and Bairstow to a lesser degree, although Bairstow doesn't have a test contract at the moment. So England would have sort of less of an ability to kind of to tell him that he couldn't go to the IPL. But the fact is they're not telling anyone not to go to the IPL. And as Lawrence rightly says, that the World T20 coming up in India, Owen Morgan has also kind of requested that he can get, for the one time this year in 2021, before that tournament, the one time he wants his full-strength T20 side is the 5-match series that follows the test. Now, if England just had one captain who captained all 3 formats, whether this would be happening right now, I don't know. But the fact is they have an extremely powerful World Cup winning captain who is requesting his full-strength time side just for 5 games in India, which are hugely relevant and pertinent for the challenge ahead in the World Cup later that year. And because he holds, he's such a powerful figure in English cricket now after the World Cup win that he's going to get his way, and that Joe Root has probably had to suck it up on this occasion because Root, after that series is out of the way, I think Root will be the captain that gets the first pick during the English summer, which is probably, rightly or wrongly, English cricket is obsessed with the Ashes, but they are talking about it as a project at the end that they're building up towards the end of the year. And those 7 tests, 2 against New Zealand, then 5 at home to India, are probably the true run-up and slightly more conditions relevant to the cricket they want to be playing at the end of the year when they get to Australia. So it's a pragmatic thing. I can certainly see why it doesn't sit that easily with fans. And I'd also, for someone like, we're really just talking about Josh Buttler here. Johnny Bairstow is a fringe player. He's come back in. He's a good player of spin. England fully fit. Does he get in? It's a flip of a coin on that one. And as I say, he doesn't have a test contract. With Josh Buttler, he is England's first choice test wicketkeeper. Now, what does he really need to get out of 5 T20s in India at the back end of the series? He's an IPL veteran. He will be playing in that tournament later in the year. There's no question that Josh Buttler will probably be opening the batting, if not lower down the order in that T20 side come the end of the year. I personally am slightly surprised that he's not the one player that Root didn't just say, look, sorry, Owen, but I need Josh Buttler here now. You're just going to have to concede on this one. But this is kind of the internal politics of a team that's grappling with such a freakish winter, to be honest.
Lawrence, are you happy with what we have, the England squad for the India series? I assume Sibley will play with Rory.
I think now that Sibley got those runs in the second innings at Gaul, okay, he had 3 umpires' calls on height, but I think now that he got those under his belt, it's given him confidence, and I think he'll have to start. The interesting one is going to be who opens with him. Crawley looked $1 million last summer when he scored that 267 against Pakistan in Southampton, and then through no fault of his own was asked to open in Sri Lanka against a very good spinner, Lasith Mbuldenya, armed with the new ball, so getting a bit of extra bounce, and he found it difficult, and why wouldn't he? But does that get held against him? I don't know. It sort of depends how England decide to line up with their top order, because you could go Sibley and Burns and then Crawley at 3, but does that look a bit green against India's spinners? I don't know. Not to mention India's fast bowlers, by the way. Let's not forget them. Do you go Sibley plus either Crawley or Burns and then Root at 3, or do you go Dan Lawrence at 3, which again looks inexperienced? So England have got some issues there. They want to squeeze. They always want to squeeze about 13 players into their 11, don't they? Stokes coming back helps with the balance of the side. And then it's really a question of how England line up with their attack. Do you play to your strengths, which for England really is seam bowling, especially with Archer coming back? And we saw how Broad and Anderson bowled in Sri Lanka. Both looked absolutely superb. Or do you go, well, it turns in India, so we'll definitely play our 2 spinners all the way through? It's going to slightly depend on what pitches India produce. We remember 2012-13 when Dhoni made a big mistake. India won the first test at Ahmedabad quite easily when England had left out Panesar, only played 1 spinner. And then Dhoni said, right, we're gonna nail them on turning pitches, and that brought Swan and Panesar into the game, and England famously fought back. So if I was India, that's a big shout, isn't it? If I was India, I would play England on flat pitches. I wouldn't want to bring their
flat. Is it
flat? Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't want to bring the England spinners into the game, because look at what Leach and Best did in helpful conditions in Sri Lanka. England have always struggled overseas on flat pitches when they don't have the Duke's ball. It would nullify pretty well everyone in their team, with the possible exception of Jofra Archer if he got going, and India would score 600. So if India don't fall into the same trap they did in 12-13, I can't really see a way of England winning the series.
Well, we have to wait and watch the pitches, because the Chennai, we haven't hosted a test match in a long time, and they have a newbie curator. This is his first test match. He's not even, I believe, not even produced for a first class. One Mr. Ramesh, he has been given in charge to do this test, and he's into kid that he's left some grass and stuff. A news report came, and somebody called from the team to the reporter. A message was sent. Did you say grass? And so we'll get to see what happens in Chennai. The point is that nobody knows what's happening there. Similarly, the third and fourth test is in a brand new stadium after Donald Trump, but cutie US president, expressed that it will be the first time we are playing a test match there. So again, the pitch is a bit of an unknown. So that should be interesting. But the flat point is interesting. So Alia, how do you see the pitches affecting the team?
Well, I mean, I've just sort of made a note of what I think England's strongest 11 would be in India, and I've just suddenly realised I've got 12 names. So, I mean, I think in terms of as Lawrence is right, what England would want would be sporting pitches that would bring their bowlers into the equation. Basically, low-scoring games. The Sri Lanka tour, not the one just gone, but the one prior to that, which England won 3-0 in Sri Lanka, was played on pretty ragging pitches, and England's batsmen in particular had a method of very aggressive, sweep-heavy tactics that got them quick runs, but enough runs for their spinners to work with. If India go flat, then I can probably see a repeat of what we saw in 2016, which was, England did manage. I'm trying to think. There was the game in Chennai when England made 400 and then shipped 700. So, Lawrence is right, and the spin attack at that point was Moeen Ali and Adil Rashid. Now, I don't know that Don Bess and Jack Leach offer a great deal more of a threat than those two, really. So, England would be hoping for a bit of grass. I think the pink ball test is probably the one that's got England particularly interested, or certainly the England team is particularly interested, because there's the big debate at the moment, or one of the debates at the moment about England's team is Broad and Anderson. The plan seems to be that there is one spot for the pair of them, and they're just going to rotate, but the way they both bowled in Sri Lanka on, in pretty unhelpful circumstances, there's possibly a case for them to be paired at some point as well. And as Lawrence says, you've got Chris Wokes in there as well, who offers another all-round option. So they've got plenty of options other than perhaps in the spin department. And if the pitches, as we've just made the point, if the pitches are flat, England are pretty stuffed, I think.
Ashwin made an interesting point on his YouTube channel, in an interview somewhere. He said that this is the first time India will be playing a back-to-back test match at the same venue, which means it gives, in Chennai and Ahmedabad, the second and the fourth, it gives a lot more time for the visiting team to adapt. It has never happened before, so we have to be careful with our plans. They're also in a rush, just rushing right from a historic triumph, just a matter of few days, and, they're sort of soaking up the sun, and suddenly you are playing England. It's also a big ask for them. So how do you think, Lawrence, India might go, considering they're just so fresh out of a draining tour?
Yeah, it's interesting, actually. Their biggest challenge may well be to descend from cloud 9 to terra firma as quickly as possible, because you win in Australia and then you've got 4 tests at home to an England team that in parts is quite inexperienced. And the temptation must be to think, yeah, we got this. We've just pulled off the greatest test series win of all time, and now we're playing a team that we beat 4-0 at home last time, and Kohli's coming back, and Bumrah's back, and Ishant's back, and KL Rahul's back, who got 199 last time England played India in Chennai. So yeah, complacency, fighting that urge will be key for India. They've just got to play normally, haven't they? They've got to do what they did last time. Ali mentioned Chennai there, where England got, I think, 450 and then conceded the biggest total in their test history. I think the game before that, England got 400 and lost that by an innings as well. When you look at the England averages from that series, quite a lot of batsmen averaged over 40. That the batting wasn't really a problem. It was taking 20 wickets. And actually the guy who took, and Ali mentioned him as well, Adil Rashid took 23 wickets in that series. And the next highest England wicket taker was Moeen Ali with 10. So people often had a go at Adil Rashid, but he took, I think, 30 wickets in that winter. There were 2 tests in Bangladesh as well. They're going to miss him. They're going to rely on 2 guys, Leach and Bess, who their confidence is fragile, to say the least. It took none for 190 between them in the first innings at Galle, and everyone was writing them off. And then, thanks to some pretty brainless Sri Lankan batting in the second innings, they took 8 wickets between them. But it won't take much for the sort of the demons to start chattering away on their shoulder again in India. And, a lot's will be asked of Leach, who, the point's been made that India's top 5 will all be right-handers. So Leach is going to have to bowl an accurate line, look for LBWs, catches to slip. Bess may be the one who struggles even more. We'll see. Everything will have to go perfectly for England to probably even win a test. I mean, Ali mentioned the pink ball test. That's an absolutely fair point. That Broad and Anderson could come into that. But, you'd have to be a big optimist to think that England can come away with anything other than a defeat, really.
Well, just looking from a distance, I'm just wondering, because I put the idea of sort of Indian, not complacency, but as you sort of said, coming down from cloud 9, off that big tour, how much of a factor. I put it to Chris Silverwood yesterday, and I think, I was obviously fishing for a good headline on that one, but he didn't quite deliver. But I just wonder actually whether the safeguard against that is the return of Virat Kohli, because just looking from afar, I mean, he flew home after the defeat in Adelaide. I'm sure he's pretty euphoric after the birth of his, first child, and it will only be natural if there was part of him sitting there watching. And as much as that was his team out there delivering history in Australia, there must have been part of him that was missing being there and being part of that slice of history. And so I just wonder whether the safeguard against complacency is the fact that Kohli comes back in, and he will be asking and demanding. I'm sure he will be pricking any egos. I'm sure he'll be bringing people down back to earth and reminding them of the importance, particularly that home record that they've got, and also just reasserting his own authority in the side. I'm not saying Rahane necessarily has challenged it there. He doesn't strike me, as I say, from afar. I don't know him that well, obviously, but from afar, he doesn't strike me as a guy that would make political capital from it and would cause any sort of disruption. But I think with Virat looking to possibly just reassert himself as India's all-powerful captain that he certainly is, I think that would just probably provide the fail-safe there.
Yeah, and I guess even the bowling attack would look, barring Ashwin, again, it will be completely new as in old faces, return Ishant and stuff, because Mohammad Shami is not fit. Ravindra Jadeja is not there. Kuldeep Yadav, I believe, is going to get a look in. So again, we have a new old faces. Lawrence, how is, in Australia, for example, they were like so hyped up, so gung-ho and so disappointed when Kohli left. Since the whole hype was Kohli is the main star for them to look there. So who are the names that are household names, if I could say, in England, who they really relish watching? Which Indian names there is?
Well, I mean, yeah, sorry to be boring, but Kohli is top of the list. And of course, his narrative arc, if you like, in England has been an interesting one. 2014, he couldn't get a run against Jimmy Anderson. Then 2018, he came back. Milan dropped him early on off Anderson at Edgbaston. Who knows what would have happened if he'd held that catch? But instead, he got 100 and batted absolutely beautifully in that series, and he came out on the losing side in the end, but probably deserved better. His kind of energy and his presence, his aura, all those things, his battle with Stokes, they've had some rucks in the past. Those things get people going in England for sure. Kohli is a demonstrative figure. He's a friend of the photographers, isn't he? They want to get him a good snap of him snarling or grimacing, and he wears his heart on his sleeve. And it's interesting to see Rahane take a different approach in Australia, which worked for India. We can't say for sure the difference. That would be far too simplistic. But India did have there was a less sort of fractious, fraught approach from them, I think, on the field, and that helped them. And it will be interesting, as Ali says, to see how India responded to Kohli's return. That's a long-winded way of saying Virat Kohli, in answer to your question. But the other guys, Bumrah is a fascinating one. Again, you're talking about cricket aficionados in England here, not the general sporting public, okay. But Bumrah would certainly be a fascinating figure with that action and the brilliant start he's had to his Test career. Pujara is a very interesting guy because he's one of these blokes who, with all the white ball mania that's been going on in the last decade, he's stuck to his guns. He's almost sort of flown the flag for red ball cricket in that Indian top order. And though he had a slow start in Australia, he showed what he was made of in the last 2 tests and got hit umpteen times in that last game. He's a brave guy, and England have struggled to remove him in the past. Look, there are so many guys to choose from. KL Rahul.
Is Rohit Sharma your name?
He does. But, Rohit is one of these guys who I think he has more of a presence in India because of the IPL and the way that dominates the narrative there, and the way that white ball cricket is on a par with red ball cricket, which it hasn't been in England for years. Okay, the World Cup win has changed that slightly. And Rohit is known and feared and can be great, but England wouldn't quite put him in the same bracket yet as guys like Kohli or Pujara. Ashwin's another one. He's devilish at home, isn't he? Jadeja will be missed, I think. Left arm spin. He's always done well against England in the past. Took 10 wickets in that game in Chennai. And do you remember that brilliant running catch over his shoulder to get rid of Bairstow when England collapsed on the last afternoon? So they're India's best fielder and a 3-in-1 cricketer. So all these guys, all India's players are superstars, aren't they? I mean, England just look up to them and dream and wonder if their lives would be different if they're born in India. So it's going to be brilliant to watch them all.
Ali, what of your own personal memories of traveling in India has been before?
Wow, and that's a broad one. It's a pretty big country.
Which is let me put it this way: which is the funniest incident that sticks out?
Which is the funniest incident that sticks out? I'm trying to think. I mean, certainly the most memorable place I think I've watched cricket has been in Dharamshala. And I think just going up to McLeod Ganj when we were there as well and seeing the views from the temple where the Dalai Lama is, having these snow-capped mountain peaks in the background of a cricket ground, and there was snow on the field. I think I also stayed in a Tibetan retreat there as well, which was pretty cool and pretty different. I've been out to the IPL as well, which was a real eye-opener, actually, to be inside grounds that I'd been in previously for Test cricket, which had been atmospheric, but also feeling a little bit shabby and a bit tired. But somehow they put a real gloss and veneer over the top of that. And when it comes to IPL, the sort of the banners and the colours and the crowds. I mean, there was one game at Bangalore was like sort of sitting on top of an amplifier. You could sort of feel the vibrations through your chest, the crowd going absolutely crazy for Virat. Although he didn't actually, I don't think he got any runs that day. But anyway, he was a big cheer when he came out. It's such an amazing place to watch cricket, and it is going to be slightly weird to be now not covering this series in person on the ground, but doing so from home, and quite a disappointment really, because it is one of the memorable tours. And I didn't do the 2012 tour. The only main test tour I've done was 2016, and I just felt like I was writing the same piece every test match, to be honest.
Yeah, lucky you. I've never been to Dharamshala. Lawrence, for those of the listeners who don't know, he's an old India hand. His wife is an Indian, a former sports journalist. So Lawrence, you have a bit of a love-hate relationship, don't you?
Oh, love. It's not love-hate. India's my favourite place to tour, I think. I mean, for different like we were in New